Imagine planning a crime with artificial intelligence, and then watching that same technology become part of the evidence against you. That's what prosecutors say happened in Omaha, Nebraska. A young man walked into a bank, threatened employees, and escaped with thousands of dollars. But investigators didn't stop at the bank. They followed the cameras. They followed the money. They followed the vehicle. And eventually, they followed the phone. His name was Darren Lewis Payne. He was 23 years old, and what investigators found on his phone would make this case very different from an ordinary bank robbery. It was February 10th, 2026. Lewis Payne entered a three-bank on Spalding Street in Omaha, Nebraska. According to the United States Department of Justice, he threatened two bank employees with a handgun and demanded money. He eventually left the bank with approximately $9,175. The robbery itself was over in minutes, but the investigation was only beginning. Inside the bank, surveillance cameras had captured something extremely important: Lewis Payne's unmasked face. They also captured details about the clothing he was wearing, and cameras in the surrounding area captured the vehicle connected to the robbery. For investigators, these weren't just random images. They were pieces of a puzzle. And then another piece appeared: the money. After the robbery, investigators say Lewis Payne went to Westroads Mall. Surveillance footage and transaction records from multiple retailers connected him to purchases made there. Some of the stolen cash was allegedly used to buy shoes and clothing. The money that had disappeared from the bank was now creating a trail, but investigators were also following the vehicle. Eventually, officers located Lewis Payne near one of his residences. According to the Department of Justice, he ran from officers. During the incident, he abandoned a banded stack of cash. Investigators later recovered additional evidence connected to the robbery from locations associated with him. But there was still one piece of the investigation that would make this case stand out: his phone. Investigators searched the device, and according to the Department of Justice, they discovered that Lewis Payne had used ChatGPT while planning the robbery. The conversations reportedly included questions concerning law enforcement response times, firearm-related information, and ammunition. His Google Maps history also showed searches for directions to the bank. And suddenly, the investigation wasn't just about what happened inside the bank. It was also about what had happened before the robbery. The cameras had captured him. The vehicle had connected him to the area. The shopping transactions created another trail. The location history showed activity connected to the bank. And according to prosecutors, his phone contained conversations with an artificial intelligence system. One of the most interesting parts of the case is that investigators didn't need to rely on just one piece of evidence. They had multiple pieces pointing in the same direction: surveillance footage, transaction records, vehicle information, recovered evidence, location history, and digital conversations. Lewis Payne admitted that he had driven the vehicle connected to the case, but he denied being responsible for the bank robbery. The investigation continued, and eventually, the case reached federal court. On August 13th, 2026, Lewis Payne was sentenced to 121 months in federal prison. That's 10 years and 1 month. 37 months were imposed for the bank robbery. Another 84 months were imposed consecutively for brandishing a firearm during a crime of violence. After his prison sentence, he will also face 5 years of supervised release. But the most unusual part of this story isn't simply that artificial intelligence was allegedly used during the planning of a crime. It's what the case says about the digital trail people leave behind. A robbery can happen in minutes, but the evidence surrounding it can exist for months or even years. A camera can record your face. A transaction can record where you spent money. A vehicle can connect you to a location. A phone can record where you went. And according to prosecutors in this case, that same phone contained conversations about the crime. The technology didn't erase the evidence. It became another part of the evidence. And that's what makes this case so unusual. A 23-year-old entered a bank and walked out with thousands of dollars. But investigators followed the trail he left behind. The cameras, the money, the vehicle, the location history, and eventually the phone. In the end, the robbery resulted in a federal sentence of 121 months, 10 years and 1 month, and a case that raises a much bigger question. As artificial intelligence becomes more powerful and more accessible, what happens when people try to use it for criminal purposes? This case shows one answer. Technology can be used as a tool, but it doesn't make a person invisible. And sometimes the digital trail isn't hidden somewhere far away. Sometimes it's sitting right there in your pocket. This documentary is based on publicly reported information from the United States Department of Justice